Rock and roll. Let's do it. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, welcome to 2021. See here, shall we do the roll call? Jennifer Rusk, would you like to start?
Jennifer Rusk here.
Greg Fasten here.
Johnson here.
Renee Jeffries Heil here.
Mary Spalletta. Present.
Rose Larkin here.
That shoots environmental staff, and Sarah DeBeers to be excused if that is okay with.
Okay. For business here is to approve the agenda. Anything? Any additions? Any deletions? All right.
Do we need to make a motion on the checklist for invasive?
If you want to bring that up during your members' items and reports, I think they've already approved and kind of handed the ball off to you. So if you want to do it then, be appropriate.
Great.
In that case, I move that the agenda be approved.
Okay.
I second. Renee Jeffries Heil seconds. We're all out of practice now.
Yeah.
No. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Grace. Okay. Previous minutes, meeting minutes. Any issues with the previous meeting minutes? I had none. Anybody else? Changes?
None.
Any objections?
Nope.
Right. Cool. All right. We just motion.
I move that the minutes be approved as written. Mary Spalletta.
Second, Steve Johnson. And all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Or, motion approved. Right. Motion approved. All right. Excellent. Let's go to the next thing here. Public comment. Any public comment? Jasper, are you out there? From the ghost? All right. So we'll move on to current items. First, the fertilizer certification and training. Actually, Bill kind of brought this to the agenda. He had been either investigating or came across Annabelle's and to some extent Marco's fertilizer ordinance that required certification and training for landscapers to apply fertilizer, at least commercial and institutional, which would be landscapers and HOAs and things like that. So that sent us out the information from Sanibel, and we just really wanted to open it up, and I had hoped Bill would be here because I wanted his input as to really, I think there's a couple things. One is there a need? Two, do we have resources? Three, is there a matter of determining whether we're successful now or not? Or you know, and also, do we have the ability to enforce it? There are four items I thought of when I thought about the fertilizer certification and training. Any thoughts?
How many contractors are we dealing with, do you think, Steve? Brad, what do you think? How many?
So on our enforcement officers rounds where they have been collecting contact info from landscapers that they come across on their rounds across the town, maybe on the order of like a dozen, maybe 20. A lot.
Yeah, not many. We could theoretically put them in at one meeting. since 125 people fit in this room. If we feel there's a need.
What I read from it was it's actually something that they get certified with, that they actually do a class. It wouldn't, I don't think, be here. It would be with a certified pest, or pesticide, application company. My thought is, I think it's a great idea what they're doing. I think for maybe making sure that people comply would be to have someone brought up maybe a sticker on the vehicle for code enforcement, just to see that they have done the required classes and understand when and where and what the objective is on using pesticides in Fort Myers Beach. And so that's my thought on it.
I love the idea. I agree with you. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea of educating those people, and I think it's a combination education piece. Right? It's educating individuals that are applying it, but also the homeowners and the HOAs for who to look for to contract with, do the work. But I think, the first question is, Chad, maybe it comes to you is, resources. How many resources do we have to apply to this? Because I think we can attack the problem from, solution depends upon how much resources we have, right? So if it's as simple as doing an online course and a sticker, and that's the extent of it, that's something we could probably handle within the committee to create the course, right? And then, create the stickers or something. I mean, if it's something small. If it's bigger that requires staff to confirm people or follow up with people on an annual basis for recertification and things like that, then it starts to become this bigger component, which then has to have more resources associated with it. So the question is, if we don't have and then I think the third piece to that, at least in my mind, was if we don't have all the resources now, what can we do now? And then how can we go about getting the resources to do more in the future? Because as I was looking at a lot of the things that we do, it comes down to resources and how can we make this a reality.
Sanibel's got a lot of resources. Obviously, that's a nice program they put together. My thought was, you could literally steal that. I mean, borrow that information. It's done. Why reinvent it? But then there's the resources to have to put it together. And they did it quarterly, I believe. Is that the green card, the vegetation competency card? Because right now they also have their landscapers. They have to also do a written test and field ID test. But for the fertilizer, I think they have to. I believe do all pesticide applicators have to have certification from the state, or is it county, or?
I believe it's state regulated by Department of Agriculture.
Okay, so and how would you characterize that particular training? Is it about?
4.
Okay, no, I'm just wondering, is it just about safety? Is it about education of really what, eutrophication is, or is it really about the pollution? Is it about, like I said, safety, animal welfare, human welfare?
I've done fertilizer courses. I've never done a pesticide course. I would imagine it would encompass a bit of all of those. But
Say fertilizer, yeah. I would say fertilizer, sorry about that, but wouldn't those be the same?
fertilizer?
Yeah. I'm thinking, wouldn't they be together at some point, because each of the landscapers decide, are typically also fertilizer companies as well, or not?
Yeah, I mean, they do cross over a bit, and the fertilizer pesticide combos cards. Fertilizer course is mostly focused on amounts, runoff, educating about the consequences of fertilizing, and then local ordinances and the state requirements for.
Where'd you go get the certification or class?
Rookery Bay and IFAS down in Naples. Marco had a continuing education course that was more funded by the state rather than the municipality.
That's what I'm finding on the web. It's a 6-hour course costing $25.
Where's the locations?
This is a IFAS, University of Florida IFAS extension. I didn't have a location quite yet. But, I mean, there's already established courses, so we don't have to establish a course specific to our island, I don't think.
Right, no, like I said, Sanibel has one themselves. I mean, they.
We agree it's necessary because we've changed sufficient number of parameters
Mm-hmm.
that we need to update everyone who works this way on the island.
Right, and so far, I think the means they've been doing that with is the base guys or the code enforcement's been handing out to commercial applicators our code enforcement, kind of the handout that was put together. And also.
We feel that's not sufficient because people are not compliant, or is that good enough?
Well, that's what we're saying. We don't, I mean, again, Bill sort of brought, suggested to add
Yeah.
this as an agenda item, so his input would have really been very helpful here, but I think I know where he's coming from, and that is that it's really a serious issue, but again, without our ability to measure the need, do we know that people aren't following, the new ordinance? Do we know a way that we can test the waters? I had thought that maybe Penny Jarrett's, non-source point pollution testing with the water lab be a means to identify that, to say, hey, in front of the beach, in front of this particular huge condo, it's usually super high in phosphate or nitrogen or something, and so they're having a runoff problem, or in the back bay probably more typically, but also what's our ability to enforce? I think maybe that's why Sanibel does the certification, because to Renee's point, it's really about education. It's not so much a sledgehammer to get them to enforce the ordinance. It's a matter of doing education so that they just know the right things to do.
Yeah, the enforcement is really the second step, and what we're saying is the first step would be we make sure everybody is informed about what the requirements. Well, it might be a simple thing, such as simple as saying, take this 6-week course that only costs you $25, or you can't work on the beach.
Well, that's a thought,
It
for
might be.
sure. Yeah. I mean, do we know, Rose, with your, knowledge of IFAS, where do you meet? Or I guess we'd have to look at the.
We've not been meeting, we've been doing Zoom.
Right, okay. Mm-hmm.
Right, I'm not sure what Lee County, where it was at whenever we were kind of in normal times. It does appear that they have like a Florida-friendly landscaping course that's scheduled for February 19th, February 24th, March 20th, and April 15th for the Florida-friendly landscaping, which I believe does include fertilizer, those right plant, right place.
Does that course necessarily do anything more than the state sort of requirement, and does it hone in on our, our ordinance specifically? I mean, that's what we want them to.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of anything in Lee County that does that. I know that the one that I attended, or they had a Naples, I believe the city of Naples and maybe some Collier County staff that would review the ordinances for the municipalities as well as the county, just to educate the landscapers. Different places have different rules, where I'd also remind members that F has been collecting contact details and out educational messaging, reminders, general newsletters, or for those that just have. Sometimes you only get a phone number. We can send a link to educational web pages that we can use to the educational component. Planting, vegetation, tools, as well as fertilizer.
Do we know if our landscapers the Florida, state of Florida certification? If they are, then they only have to tack in the added, what the island has in their particular ordinance.
Now what we're asking them is, it's been more fertilizer oriented. How, you know, do you fertilize? If you do you have the state certification? If they don't, then they do need to do that, to have that to fertilize on town of Marco Island, or town of Fort Myers Beach. Collecting their phone number and email, that point of contact, so we can dialogue and educate.
I think just an idea of how many have this certification and how many do not would be a good starting point.
Fertilizer certification. I can send you our database and kind of all an idea. We've also started collecting details on the different condo managers, et cetera, and asking them the types of questions, because they also manage landscaping on a fair amount of land.
Do they have to get a permit before they can fertilize, before a company can?
Don't require permitting for fertilizer. That's
Currently not. Isn't that basically what we're talking about? I mean, the certification would be a permit, correct, or not?
what Sanibel's doing is a certificate of competency. So show us that you know what you're doing before we'll let you do it. In Marco Island, at some stage, if have it, they were requiring permitting for every yard that was fertilized, but I'm not sure if that's actually being practiced or if that's just an ordinance that's.
How do you have a list of, a database of landscapers? How do you have a list of database of landscapers?
This is the town of Fort Myers Beach.
Correct.
So our code enforcement officers on their rounds, they drive up and down the streets every day, and when they see a landscaping company, just stop and give them the educational card that we've produced. Hey, these are our rules about fertilizer. Do you fertilize? Yes or no? And we record their answers and take down their phone number and email.
A rough idea. Who has some type of training, fertilizer?
Would have to go take a look. I don't know.
So any company could come onto the island and fertilize.
Well, company that has a license, yeah.
Or even without, because checking, then
We are checking. We are asking.
As they make their rounds.
Yep, the fertilizer trucks are pretty hard to miss.
Yeah.
The landscaping trucks, I should say.
Well, where does that leave us?
Did we know if Bill was going to be here?
I haven't heard from council.
on.
I was expecting him. I had no reason not to.
I'm wondering, that's what I was going to say, table it, or could we at least put it down at the end of the agenda to see if he's just running late and
We can bring
revisit
it.
it
We
when he
can
was
bring it
here?
for next meeting. I'll send him a text and see.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to do a little, and there's a lot of good ideas that came up that would be interesting to look into. Not necessarily,
Feels like we're doing
Emergency.
something right now. It's just, I think, the question of whether or not it's enough.
effective, yeah.
Yeah, and then do we have how would we go about solving
I'm
it?
sensitive to the resource issue. I mean,
Yeah.
we're a small town here. Basically, Chad would probably end up having to do it early. I mean, you'd have to offer it up enough, because if a new company came and wanted to do business, you couldn't, you'd be excluding them if you didn't offer the class to allow them to get certified to do business on the island, so.
My understanding was that in Sanibel, it wasn't in-person educational, like going around looking at different plants, asking them to identify it. But it's been.
Not to say, I mean, I had made a note here too about an online tool where they actually, I'm trying to remember what kind of training I've had through the years, but you actually have to sit and go through the training at the end. It gives you you have to take a test. When you're
It's like
done.
an open book test. Yep.
Right, open book test, and when you're done, boom, you hit submit, and it should roll up and say, head shoots 100%. I don't know, you mail them a sticker for their truck. Right, that would be resource, would work well with resources anyway. You'd have to put that training together though. Put that tool together, but it could also be just a slide, I mean, literally a slideshow. It'd be a video, it'd be a bunch of a slide deck. So let's go ahead and table it then, and if you guys all agree, and we'll bring this up next meeting, and then also potentially at the end of the meeting, if actually, why don't we just say we'll do some research and bring it up next meeting, even if Bill does show up here, just because I think we're going to be a full agenda today. Okay, so having said that, let's go on to the second topic, which is the sea turtle ordinance review. I think we decided to take a look at this. It's been 1 year since the town adopted the state model ordinance. And after having reviewed it, it looks like Chad thought there needed to be some additional changes, and I believe he also sent it to Turtle Time, who had some input. And as you can see, it's fairly minimal. You all have a chance to take a look at some of the changes. Really, it really focuses on the interior lighting. The model really focuses on exterior, and we've identified that a real problem is interior lighting when drapes are left open or sliders are left open. And I think the fact that it wasn't spelled out well probably caused some issues with the ability to put them into compliance. So, is that a fair assessment, Chad?
Sir.
For the updates there?
Yep, and yeah, there's some additional language. I don't know if y'all want to review things or if they're just see if anybody has any additional suggestions. I did get some from Turtle Time.
Yeah, so we're agreeing that the language doesn't need to be changed except the lighting language. All the rest of the ordinance is acceptable as it is.
Correct, and even just then, it's just a tweak here and there.
Right,
I'd
so
say,
this
yeah.
is a minimal change,
Right,
just for clarification purposes.
yeah. As you can see, the very first thing was on the second page, and it's basically just adding and interior lighting.
Right.
32-105, whatever's underlined there, really. On the top here, new construction, a better a definition or the addition of that. I had one maybe addition, Chad, and that I think also came through from Turtle Time, was that on what is it, page 1, 2, 3, it's section 32-105, it's the I portion there right above 32-106. Where it says, so basically, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy or certificate of completion, the exterior and interior lighting of new development shall be inspected after dark by the town with all exterior and interior. So literally add and interior to both of those. It's unreasonable. Because you go out, actually, and this is for new construction, to give them that certificate of occupancy, they turn their lights on and you stand at the beach and you look at it to see if it's going to be a problem. And historically, you didn't have to turn any of your interior lights on, so now you would. So if you didn't have drapes or whatnot, then that light would come directly onto the beach. So, sound reasonable?
Yep, so noted. Received the same from Ms. Eve.
Okay, good. Exterior and interior lighting. Maybe one other. I think I made 3 notes here, small ones. The next one will be on the next page. I don't know, right above section 32-107. Basically, you're identifying in D appropriate techniques for interior lighting to achieve compliance with the provisions of this article, but include but are not limited to, and you said apply window tint, rearrange lamps, use opaque shades. So 4 might be, multiple of these techniques may be needed to achieve compliance, or however you would want to word that, but basically it's just not one or the other, it's sometimes all of them are needed. Yeah, it's something there. And the last thing, I don't know where exactly it would fit in, but, so, lighting landward of the CCCL. This doesn't really address that. Really didn't see it in there per se.
Lighting landward, so more in the interior of the island is addressed in H for multifamily, commercial, and industrial structures, as well as improvements to those existing structures. So in H of 105.
105.
We do require a approved lighting plan.
Oh, I see.
However, meet the provisions of this article, you know, really it's, you know, there's not much in this article.
And that's, you're saying that speaks directly to this. You look like a roaming tomcat. Come on and sit down.
Looking for home.
Right. So you're saying in this part, this is really what points to the lighting standards that you handed us today, right?
Yeah, I gave you the lighting standards, which is more general lighting standards for family, commercial, municipal, different areas.
Mm-hmm. I mean, since we're also talking about dark skies, would it be either or? You'd have to, I mean, actually, you'd have to point toward what the standards are, right? So unless we had a dark skies ordinance or standards, or dark skies were in our lighting standards, you can't necessarily add to the sea turtle lighting ordinance.
I mean, so add dark skies, a section on dark skies, and then require structures landward of the triple CL to comply with that dark skies language.
Yeah. Everybody.
I agree.
That'd be an easy way to do it, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Get right in there. If we agree that we want,
We also need to take a look at the lighting ordinance too, to make sure that just is,
yeah.
picked up the dark skies model ordinance even.
Mhm.
Consider that. But then bring everything together. That's all I had. Any other contributions? You think you have enough there, Chad?
Yeah, I mean, whatever
Can we-
suggestions.
Is that enough information actually to roll it up and maybe vote to bring it to, have staff bring it to council for reading?
If anybody else has any other suggestions?
It sounds good.
All right, then I'll make a motion. How's that? If I can get it together. I make a motion that, that we adopt the modified sea turtle conservation ordinance with the input provided today and request staff to bring it to council.
Second that,
Okay?
Mario Spalletta seconds.
All right. Any further discussion?
And direct staff, if you want to advise
direct.
town
We-
council to You're amending the sea turtle ordinance
With these changes?
and advise staff to do that.
Who actually requests it or who brings it up?
Council can, your town council advisory committee, so you advise town.
Bring him, okay. But so that, are you the communication? That tells them that I want?
I liaise with staff.
Right, okay.
So, we have our council liaison.
Here he is. Right. Okay, maybe that's the best. Right. Okay, gotcha. All right, let's try that again. So, I'll make a motion that we submit the amended sea turtle conservation ordinance, and present it to town council.
I'll second that, Mary Rose Spalletta.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, are we putting dark skies in that anywhere?
Yes.
Can we just do that? Or is that a whole separate?
You would put that, well, as we discussed, Chad, in there?
Yeah, I mean,
You want, or do you need somebody to wordsmith?
What are we gonna put in
I think
about dark?
maybe if we want to, if any of y'all have reviewed it with, any rigor and want to have specific sections that y'all think would, you're suggesting for the multifamily, commercial, and industrial structures, and where to the triple CL to comply with. Makes sense, so we have that on the next agenda item, if y'all want to go through the Dark Skies ordinance and, your input there of what y'all think is a good idea to put in the ordinance.
Okay. So we'll put this aside for a minute. That would be contingent on actually, adopting a dark skies model ordinance, correct? Would that push this
I
back?
thought we just wanted to kind of add a dark sky section into the sea turtle lighting. I know. I misunderstand?
That's what I understood too.
That's what I understood.
Okay.
The discussion, I'm not sure when you joined, so the discussion we had was, our chair's concern was we have
East
the
of, yeah,
landward of,
and with the triple CL. So right now, it directs them to really go to the lighting standards, which I think they're dated. I mean, really, I read through there, I don't know when this was adopted, but, wildlife area of concern, that, well, they actually have, not you mentioned it, FWC has that, area lighting of, wildlife area of concern, which is really a DOT, it's their map, but the DOT is the one that is using that now for their lighting projects. And then the other one was dark skies. I don't know, I haven't dug into that deep, but I think that's just their suggestion of where dark skies are needed to prevent, sky glow from preventing, from contributing to issues with wildlife. And that particular map completely encompasses the island. Regardless, it doesn't have to be in direct sight of the beach or anything like that. Over the bridge, yeah, that's the wildlife area of concern. If they actually on there also, on the left-hand side of that Google Earth, there's a check mark. If you check that, it shows then the FWC dark skies. And like I said, that blankets the whole town, and up into over the bridge, probably San Carlos and things like that. Are you suggesting one of those would be a good tool to try to? Right. Right, well, there's, dark skies is pretty involved, if you guys looked at all that model ordinance, I mean, you've got zones, so if you have a commercial district, you can, request higher light, more light. To me, dark skies is really just the principles, are those original 5 principles of, is the light useful that's on? Is it targeted? Is it, are you losing the lowest lumens, lowest lighting you need to? And also color, the minimal color temperature you it's almost like preventing pollution, waste light. How that come up, yeah. Hmm? 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 I mean, just as a reminder, when they're saying they don't feel safe, is that because there's no lighting or because they want, white light? Hmm? Right, right. I see. Well, there's a association of white light as safety, but everybody, I mean, just to go on record, everybody knows that amber light is just as safe as white light because it's light, it's the amount of lumens. The difference is amber light has no color recognition. You lose color recognition with amber light.
It's still sufficient to see.
Sure, yeah, and also there's,
People
I don't have the notes here with me, but there's, a sort of a Crime Stop organization that suggests that that's safer because it doesn't cast shadows. White light, you cast very dark shadows.
Yes.
You can't see, and also you have, problems with your pupil dilation. You're getting if you get hit with a hot spot. So, but it's really I think it's aesthetics, appearances, and change, Bill, to your point about the merchants. But that's also, I mean, I believe that's all also part of, I can't remember, do you remember off that map, Bill, whether that covers, Old San Carlos is completely covered, right, by that wildlife area of concern, or not? Right. Okay. Where does that leave us? So maybe I'm
The sea turtle ordinance is okay the way it is. The only thing we're deciding now is whether we should try and put the dark skies in there too.
right, in the dark skies, I think, and that's really for new construction. Is that correct, Chad? I mean, you certainly can't request every homeowner to, I think if they're sort of grandfathered in that area, to adopt dark skies, if it was an ordinance, let's say, correct? Would be only for new construction, so it'd be going forward?
Right, so, I mean, the issues that I've encountered in the past 2 sea turtle seasons with regards to dark skies and commercial properties or multifamily properties are, it's not necessarily new construction, but it is lights that have been added to an existing structure where it's pointing down San Carlos right at the beach. It's the brightest thing, out there, or it's in a parking lot that's kind of behind, maybe 1 or 2 blocks deep. There's a parking lot that's just say, I could see it kind of like overlooking Crescent Park, maybe looking a little bit southeast, parking lot over there from Crescent Park, and that was one, there was just a parking lot light that's angled up this way. And another one of the brightest things that I saw, or in the CWA, one of the brightest things is kind of down Santini, the lights off the marina down there that are, on the barnyard. And these are floodlights that, instead of being, downward directed and full cutoff, they're floodlights.
The classic cord
Going everywhere.
salvation lights that are just,
And
yeah.
actually,
and
in
sim-
many places across the street of Estero Boulevard, that they're shining lights on their signs, leave them on all night. I mean, it's a real issue down in the Times Square area.
That's sort of how that would address that. I mean, right now, those are, but although, as I was looking through this, and I hadn't looked through this until right before the meeting. I dug it up, the lighting standards, so that's the one we didn't have ahead of the meeting. Doesn't this have full cutoff? Don't we request that everything has a full cutoff?
Yeah, so, I think a
So
review.
those are out of the ordinance anyway, correct or not?
Yeah, so I think just sticking to that, and those are the issues that I've encountered. I think our ordinance, the lighting ordinance does encompass some of those things, full cutoff, limiting off-site light to adjacent properties. Using the lumens.
I have a question. If it's, say, for example, a pathway in a shopping center, and the lights are actually pointed down, but they're so bright that you can see it from the beach, how, they're pointed down, how is it that, even if the light is illuminating onto the beach, how is that acceptable?
So, it wouldn't be, so the ordinance addresses that.
Yeah, light directly, indirectly, or cumulatively visible from any portion of the beach. Actually, it does address that under the, the applicability, regardless of whether those properties are beachfront properties, all buildings related infrastructure including. Maybe the $1 million question is do we need the reference to dark skies in order to allow to enforce this? Or is that a hole that allows? Is that right? Is that a good way to put it? That's sort of how I'm approaching this. Is that give the teeth to to bring that into into compliance?
Right. So right now with H, what I would be reviewing it would be in terms of this section 34, 1831 through 1834. So that kind of gives, the lighting standards, general lighting standards are what I would have to use for anything landward of the triple CL. Can I answer your question?
Yes. Before.
On this?
Oh, this came today.
No, I left it on your list today.
Are these standards are for turtle time? For the turtle season, or is this 12 months a year? Okay, so it has nothing to do with turtles.
Correct.
Reality.
References it.
But but its purpose is be a 12-month ordinance and not a.
Right, that's just general standard lighting standards. Be consistent with what you'd see with most municipalities.
Adding some dark sky in a 12-month, okay, but if we added to a specific ordinance, 12 months. Okay.
Good point, Greg. Yeah, good point.
I'm of the opinion that actually this is the one that needs to really maybe implement the real dark skies. And look at that as the lighting standards. Because the issue is with the, with the brighter lights and the LEDs, it's just, everything's glowing more. Even, it's just even a light left on inside a house going out to the beach, if it's an LED, it just travels so far. It used to be all incandescent lights, so it's all softer lights. And that's happening everywhere. Everybody, my neighbor's got a ton of them. He's just into lights and the LED, and they're right? And the other neighbors are starting to complain, so I didn't think there was actually, we had, ordinances on like light trespass as well, but that's actually is addressed in here, that it has to be, it can't be more than a half a foot candle or whatever the measurement was from the property line. You can sit on your side of the property line with a light meter, if it's more than a half a foot candle, then he's out of,
Oh, Chad,
go after him. Or it also has in there, I think I read that if you have the lights that automatically turn on, you shouldn't turn on if you're anywhere in your yard, if you're in your property, those lights
it's gonna
shouldn't
be-
turn on, and those always turn on.
oh, yeah.
Stuff like that, because we have, like I said, we have a good relationship. I don't have a problem at all, but the person across the canal really does, I think, the new guy that moved in, because I've got Eureka problems between us. He's got, it's going right across the canal at the guy in the corner there. I mean, they haven't,
Yeah, that is a consideration.
I'm just wondering if it's happening, around other neighborhoods with the lights. So maybe we need to really discuss dark skies some more and really target the lighting ordinance with that, and just include what the reference to it here in the sea turtle ordinance. I mean, am I
That would make sense.
going along the right way here? And if so, what would we actually want to add? It would have to be up in that H area, correct? I just don't know how you can.
I take Dr. Fossum's point as something that you'd want 12 months out of the year, and reference, must be approved lighting plan, compliance with this article, and Division 20 lighting standards.
Good. Let's do that.
I don't know if anything's what do you mean by grandfathered? I don't think that that's necessarily grandfathered.
Some of that's actually in the lighting ordinance bill, I found out, that there are trespass, there's some written in this. It's already there, correct. Yeah, I think this, I mean, again, from my understanding with the dark skies is that it really, talks more about, would apply more to like full cutoff fixtures, like we were talking about those old quartz, like bulbs that would, that anything that pushes light out horizontally. I mean, it's supposed to go down. Everything needs to go down, so there's no light escape. That would apply to, I would say, to remodeling jobs, to new construction and stuff like that. I don't know if you could go back and tell everybody they have to change all their fixtures because we have a dark skies ordinance. Almost like on the beach, you can't say just because we want, you don't have to put on film on your windows. You can close your drapes. It'd be voluntary, but it would apply to all new construction. So 30 years down the road, maybe we'll have consistency.
Also, if you look at the
Right.
compliance section, they do address, lights that are installed after a permit or development order is issued. And they also address outdoor lighting must be maintained in compliance with this code.
Right now, if I understand it correctly, there's no residential lighting permits needed. It's only commercial. Does that sound right, Chad? Did I see that somewhere?
I
If you have
would
a
need to,
commercial new construction or remodel, they have to submit a lighting plan?
not if it's landward of the triple CO, at least in terms of the sea turtle. I can ask the question and get an answer back to you. ask the planners on that. That's more their expertise. When we say triple CL, that's going to be referring to Florida statute, which is the 1991. 78 triple CL is just a zoning line.
So the 74 is closer beachward, 78 is closer beachward, 91 is roughly Estero Boulevard, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So, answer your question? Yeah, pretty much everything east of Estero, I think, is, I mean, that's the triple CL, right?
Yeah, more or less. It skirts a little
Where's
bit
that?
into, across the street a little bit more in some sections than others.
Right, well, I mean, for us, it's more of a reference. I guess there's DEP regulations, right, concerning the triple CL, but the town itself, I mean, I'm only using it as a reference, I guess. Makes sense.
Right, so it's referencing Florida Statute 161.053, which references the CL.
Multifamily. I mean, would just would just a simple line there saying anything landward of the triple CL should consider international dark skies compliance? Or is that just toothless because it's should, or it's just a recommendation?
I mean, you'd have to go in and define that as, to include the dark skies into the ordinance if you're.
I mean, I think long-term that would benefit the town from the, from our mandate here, from the Marine Resource Task Force, as far as the wildlife and, it's just not the turtles. I mean, everybody realizes that. It's the moths, it's the article that the
Wildlife.
zooplankton won't come up and feed on the phytoplankton if it's too bright at the edge of the water. That,
It's nice just to be able to see the stars, too.
of course, yeah, I mean, people like, that's the big one, yeah. Well, it washes everything out.
That's something people understand, I think. Actually, when they come here, they go out to the beach at night, and when they drink, they
Right.
want to look at the stars. You're right.
Not even realizing how really bright it is.
It sounds like dark skies is a separate.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just leave that out, I'd say. Does all agree?
Yep.
Okay, so the original, oh no, I still haven't made that motion, right? So now do we make the motion?
Did we move on? I think we did, didn't we?
Did, but now you
think
got
we
a new
do.
one.
No, we never, I don't think we voted on it yet.
Oh, yeah, are we in the discussion?
We always interrupted it before it was finished. Right? Roger. Okay. Okay, let's get this done. So, we're gonna disregard the first two motions made by the chair.
Draw them.
Withdraw them? All right, so the first one needs to be withdrawn. The second motion,
We have to vote on withdrawing?
okay,
I withdraw. Or you better
you
withdraw.
withdraw the second?
I'll withdraw them both.
Okay, I'll withdraw them.
We'll try again.
We're sharp, aren't we?
I think we need
Okay.
to have the rules of our order printed up.
Right. Robert's sitting right next to me is what we need. Okay, so the real motion is for, to amend the sea turtle conservation ordinance with the additions provided to our staff liaison, and to bring that to the attention of the town council.
Oh, I'll second that. Mary Rose Spalletta.
Questions? Moved.
Town council meeting to update them.
Correct, I will do that.
You didn't vote, though. You vote?
There were no objections, so I did a little shortcut I learned.
Good.
Exactly.
Ah.
So I'll trip all over myself again, but, yeah. Okay, I'm here.
Tuesday. Monday is President's Day. MLK Day.
Oh, yeah, that's CLP, that's CFPL day, too. I'll be there anyway, yeah. Perfect, all right. Wow, that's a big order of business. Thank you, everybody. That's a big check mark there. Next on the list, beach excavation, known as filling in holes. So that was brought up, and I did see the council in January to go to do the priority, to review our priority list that we're going through now. And I'm not sure we got any traction on it. When I suggested that the town addresses it with the beach staff to get it owned. So my understanding is that they are doing things now. Public Works will come out. I think it's based on requests from the public. Major hole here, would you come and fill it out? I think Base has been instructed to fill in some of the smaller stuff, and if there's something larger, they'll actually bring a tractor out there and fill in the big excavations.
As it stands now, is there any regulation that asks people to fill in the holes that they've dug on the beach, Chad?
So, section 14-3, destruction or diminishment of the dune or beach system. Parent 8, excavate, mine. So parent A is unlawful or prohibited for any person to do, conduct, or permit any of the following on a beach, on a dune, or in the water adjacent to a beach. Parent 8 is excavate, mine, remove, or haul sand or soil from the beach or dune, except in emergency situations as declared by the town council. So, didn't look up the definitions of excavate. It's open to interpretation, but it does prohibit excavation. My understanding of general policy is, if you're going to dig a hole, fill it in before you leave, but of course we all know that doesn't always happen.
I'm thinking specifically of the holes that were dug in front of Sandpiper, I believe it was. They were almost as tall as I, and they were massive, and they dug a bit large circular trench, they put all of the sand in the center. It stayed there for several days until finally the town had to come out with equipment to fill it in. So that meant for all the while that it was standing there, which was several overnights, it was absolutely treacherous.
Report it?
Is there, and yeah, I think eventually someone did, and that's why the town came out. But is that the kind of thing that the code enforcement, as the people are even digging, can say, we don't want to rain on your parade, but please fill this thing in?
Yeah. I mean, and in my mind, shoveling sand, especially to that's considered excavation.
Right.
We could add a definition in there, what excavation is.
I'm not talking about a kid who's out there digging a hole. These were adults, and they spent all day because it was an effort for them.
They're using real shovels too. I mean,
Oh,
anything I feel like
definitely,
some of
definitely.
the plastic shovel,
You're not gonna get
you
very
can
far.
erase, yeah, pretty quickly.
Right. Are metal shovels allowed? Can they excavate and go down as deep as they like with those things?
Metal shovels aren't referenced, and we don't have any quantitative criteria for square footage like area or depth.
Right. I don't know that we even need to, or, I mean, I will agree, this was extraordinary. I've not seen that before on the beach.
They've had some up further north. I know Bill pointed one out that had like 3-room underground bunker almost. It was sofas in there and.
Oh, my goodness. The thing is, when do we want to address that? As they're digging?
Yeah, probably, I mean, yeah, I would think base, I think, we having just a informal conversation, I think, with Nello. He says, he usually pulls up and says, when you're done, please, if he sees like it's getting larger, he'll say, please put it in, or he even said at one point, he asked for their license or something, because he told them that it was against an ordinance, and that he's gonna write their name down, that if he comes back and it's not there, he's gonna come find him or something, which I don't know if that's.
Quantitative criteria are always useful for enforcement because you can say, hey, this is greater than, square feet, it's deeper than feet from the grade, therefore it's considered excavation, fill it in. Whereas if you get into subjectivity, hey, it's just kids doing it, hey, it's a big kid at heart, plastic shovels where I've seen people dig quite a bit with plastic shovel. I don't know if you want to define excavation, I would just encourage you to do it in terms of square footage, like area and or depth. Maybe, shall not be left overnight or effect because of public safety issue.
I think it's a valid pursuit. I'm surprised that there aren't complaints about it, because some of the
You can get
holes are
hurt, yeah.
absolutely treacherous.
We also have the seasonal signs is actually, I think they're helpful. A lot of those are fill-in holes. Bill had those made. That was one of the larger quantities, was the fill-in, turtle season, fill-in holes.
Right.
So turtles don't fall in them.
Right. I think a lot of it might be education. I think people assume that the tide comes in and pulls the sand into all those holes, and they don't need to worry about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to
Good description.
educate people. Because I think what happened with that large hole that I was referencing, it was in front of the resort, but people then left the resort. So the ones who had dug it and were responsible for it were gone. And the resort has no responsibility for that. It just happens to be in front of their property. So
Right. We're not done playing with that. Yeah, that's happened more than once to me. Running out.
Seriously, that's what they were saying, is like
It's gonna be their little play pit for their week there. Not even necessarily the real huge ones either. I mean, just one you can do with a plastic shovel is probably deep enough to hurt you when you're walking along and you
Right, yeah, it's big enough to cause
don't
a.
see it. It's just that length, you know, where you expect your heel to hit and it just gives, and that's when it gives you up. Me, anyway.
Or is this just one of those chronic things that living on the beach, we just have to deal with? We have
Plenty of
enough
that,
problem
yeah.
enforcing the laws we have.
I agree, and also you don't want like national news, Fort Myers Beach prohibits making sandcastles by
Right.
4-year-olds.
Right, right.
It would
Yeah.
not look real good.
Right,
Don't play in our sandbox, is what the town is saying.
It's a hazard, it's a safety hazard as well. You have people jogging and walking in the middle of the night or, after sunset, and very easy to fall in one of those and break a leg yourself.
I didn't play the same role of enforcement on the beach, there. I'm not sure what what officers do. I can certainly inquire. I do recall, it's in Florida statute, they specifically accept, as in like make an exception for sandcastles. Should have, I've read that in statute where they're allowed to excavate the beach. Not talking about kids making. I can try and bring some material for the members to kind of review and revisit the issue.
What about something simple like have beach patrol have little flags and say, it says fill this hole in, and just puts it in the hole? I know it's another thing for people to do, but, it's just, a little, little flag says, please fill this in.
I'm not a big fan of leaving
I know,
Yeah, there's more, yeah.
plastic on the
Pollution,
beach.
yeah.
I understand the idea. I think my
paper
practice has
straws.
been whenever I do see people digging holes, and I'm not on the beach as much as base, but when I do see them, just, hey, how's it going? Hope y'all are having fun. Please, listen whenever y'all leave for the day, and most people comply, but you do get the odd, confrontational lady saying that I'm absolutely allowed to do this, and you bothering my kids.
I think where this came up, it's been kind of circulating here for a while, but the practical example is that there's always going to be these smaller holes too, and the thing is, some of them are a little bit bigger, and I've got a neighbor that goes out, and his thing is he likes to fill them in, but he'll sit there, with his foot dragging your foot sideways. It takes a little bit of time. Actually, when I do it, it actually makes my knee hurt. I mean, you're using your feet. If you had a rake, you could do it in 20 seconds. Again, I just thinking that they should have a rake on their cart, and if you see one abandoned and somebody didn't refill it, it takes a minute to a second to do it. But I think maybe some of that is happening now. Did you say, Chad?
My understanding, Public Works 1 to 2 times a week will take an out to fill in holes as they're reported. Whereas staff, serves them in.
Then do you think we need to have some type of ordinance so that the code enforcement, are you driving past seeing the hole, when you ask them, they please fill it in? If they say, no, we don't intend to, you can say, but it is a law here on our beach?
Let me do a little bit of research. I can come back to and see what other beach communities do around us, and then also look up some language from state and see what they define as excavation. There's some language that we.
Thanks, Chad.
It can't be a unique problem to us, I'm sure. Search on it. All right, so we'll go ahead and table that as well. Next on the list, ocean-friendly sunscreen. What do you think?
I mean, I'd love to do something. I think it comes down to, we talked about this before, right? It comes down to, we can't mandate anything, we can't create an ordinance because of where we're at. It comes down to that education arm that becomes so common, it feels like, in everything that we're doing. So I'd love to start to formulate that education plan so that we can start to educate the shop owners, because I think that we have to get them on board with at least shifting the sunscreen that they have in their shops, things that are marine safe and ocean friendly, right? And that's a whole educational component. And then from there, help them to educate the consumers that come down. We're never going to be able to ban people that bring it down with them. We're not, nobody else has time to pull it off the beach when they see it, kind of thing. But I think we can potentially, in my mind at least, potentially start to partner with the Chamber of Commerce and the businesses here and be like, okay, here's the education component. And here's why this isn't a good idea. And here's why we want to change the type of sunscreens that we at least carry here on our little 7-mile home. So that was always kind of my vision and where I sort of thought we should take it. I guess my question to the larger group is, we want to become more educated ourselves on why that's important as step number one, or do you want, kind of like Rose has so eloquently done with the master gardeners, do you want me to sort of start to pull something together and then bring it to the larger group and review it? I guess my question is, what's the next step you need from me? I feel like since I brought this up, it has to come from me first, and then we'll worry about, Chad never, I'm the first resource, I guess.
Right, exactly. Well, it was one of your interests, so it's how
Yeah.
do you, what could we do as a advisory council to help it, really?
Yeah.
So, by the way we work, now is the only time we can do things. It's not like we can group together and have a beer and say, how do you want to do this? How do you want to do it, right? You can't
Right, yeah, that's not,
work out of the office per se here, so fortunately that means that you become an island, you become an island and you have to own it. Push it along.
Otsego Bay might help with that.
yeah. I think there's a lot of resources that could help with it here. I'm happy to take the lead in reaching out to everyone and starting to have the conversations, if that's the most appropriate way to go next. I think I'm looking for a little bit of guidance too.
You have companies that would provide samples?
I have companies that will come in and,
volunteers to go up and down the beach to educate people. Hey, we have this. Now, again, that might be soliciting and not the right thing to do on the, start pumping those products on the beach. Some other people to start saying, why can't we solicit our products on the beach?
well, and I think that's the fine line kind of piece of things. I think the most beautiful way that I've seen this expressed that makes the most sense to everyone is that we're all really trained to look at the back of nutritional labels, or for the most part. I wouldn't say that everybody does, but right, we all know to flip it over and look at the back of it. Well, sunscreen functions the exact same way, right? The front's really pretty in marketing, and it's got all kinds of Fruit Loop kind of packaging on the front of it. But when you look at the back, you start to see the chemicals that are the ones that we don't necessarily want to have in it. And it's a matter of educating people on looking for those, whether it's 12 or 13, depending upon where you're at, that shouldn't be in those, right? And then there are companies that are making, and here, local companies here in Florida that are making these sunscreens. And then I think the idea is to promote those companies. Are they the only company doing it? No, but just because a company, organic is the perfect, analogy, right? Just because something is organic, there's sort of no, or, healthy for you. There's nobody overseeing that. Anybody can put Reef Safe on the front of their marketing materials on a sunscreen. That doesn't necessarily make it reef safe. So there's an education component that has to be tied into it.
You have those educational materials? Do you see this as like town-supported effort, or is it more of a private
Well, and that's where,
volunteer group that can?
well, I mean, I
take the
personally would
shots?
like it to see, I would love to see this group take it on like we take on the lighting and the invasive plants and everything else, right? Because everybody who's around me, literally people show up at my house and I take their sunscreen out of their hand and I say, well, at least within my four walls on my boat, this is, I'm pretty militant about it, right? And that's one thing, and I will continue to do that, but I would love to make it be a larger committee effort and or larger town awareness piece. Right? Because I think it goes like when we came in and had the turtles that are being sold, right? We don't want to take business away from our businesses that are already struggling. We don't want them to feel like we're dictating what they can carry and what they can't carry. We want to, from my perspective, embrace them as partners in this and help them, educate them, and give them the resources so that they can provide the safest sunscreen possible, right? While preventing exposure to the sun and the sun cancer, the skin cancer component of it, as well as the absorption of any toxic chemicals, as well as the ability of those chemicals to then run off into the water, right, and potentially damage our marine environment.
How do we educate the tourists, which is the majority of people probably using these suntan lotions, who are non-native, resident? I think the only thing is by signage walking onto the beach. I mean,
I actually have a suggestion, if I may. I was gonna bring it up in minutes, but I kind of feel like maybe this is a good time to bring it up. Is a friend of mine, it's not my idea, but it's a fantastic idea. A friend of mine had asked, I had said, I really want to come up with some ideas to better help my community and help, and you know, the word out on all these subjects that we've been working on. And he had mentioned something about like a pop-up educational, like an environmental conservation pop-up that we could do at parks, local parks like Lynn Hall or down at Times Square, and we could, you know, maybe have people come out to speak on plant, native plant, invasive plants, dune initiatives, sunscreens, and we could do something like that. I think it'd be a great, fun way to get out, to talk to the community, talk to tourism, and get the word out. Maybe, you know, bring some samples. So it's an idea. That's what I was going to bring up in the minutes that I thought would be a great idea. We could talk about water conservation. We could have sand dune initiative, sunscreens, bird conservation, sea turtle conservation during the times they're, you know.
I love that idea. I've seen that work in a lot.
Got a table.
Yeah, for a lot of different concepts. I think my question to the larger group would be, it goes back to that resources question, right? And it goes back to, I think, something that we had talked about before, right? We have the various beach markets that are going on right now. Is there a way to you're talking about trying to get the people who are either seasonal or tourists, right? They all see that. Is there a way that we can work with them to have signage on our various different things? Is there a way I believe in order to have a booth there, they're gonna want some exchange of funds, right? But could we have a booth at these, right? Well, so now
I don't think we need a booth. I think just a table and, you know, each project or each, you know, thing, we could get a speaker that's educated on the matter.
Well, but I guess so what I was trying to get at is that we have to have some venue that we're going to be doing this, right? And there has to be some marketing effort so that people know that it's there, or it's gotta be a place where people are coming on a regular basis, right? And then I love this concept because so much, at least from my perspective, of what we do in this committee is focused on education, right? We don't have enough resources to go out and beat people over the head to make them do what we need to do. So we need to educate them and bring them into making better decisions, and here's how to do it. So it all comes back down to this education piece. But education is slow moving, right? So it would be great if we had, that every Saturday there was the Marine Resource Task Force pop-up tent at the various parks, right? But to do that, how many people do you need? We're a committee of, right? How do we get that? How do we migrate from where we're at now to this larger component, which I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, so we
I
would
just
just
don't know how
get we would basically have a table, get a tent at first. I mean, this is something I would like to maybe bring up, put on the agenda for next month, come up with some ideas as a group. And we would obviously need permits if we were gonna do it at our local parks like Newton Park, Bay Oaks, things like that, I believe, do we need permits?
Yeah, you would need an event permit. I don't think we're a little bit more strict with regards to COVID. I'm not sure with some requirements and following CDC guideline kind of caveats, but basically naming the right of way, beach accesses. Had, I think, like, that's like Sunbum event. For right away where I think they product, so that, but you,
And so my idea would be once a month, we would all discuss, agree with speakers who are interested in actually speaking, going to the booth and actually putting it on. And then we would have, it could be once a Saturday and once a week, and have the 4 or 5 approved speakers to actually come out, and so on and so on. And, you know, we could, I guess it could, you know, kind of go in with seasons too, and whatever the matter is, whatever we're interested in at the time, or something that we want to get out to the community, it would, you know, just kind of coincide with that. So that, I think, is a good idea, and I think we should put it on the agenda to talk about for next month.
What I'm saying is the beach access points with all the sign, just tack that onto one of the sign, all the beach access points.
That's what they did in Hawaii, is they put messaging at the signage. And then the signage, I do think that the signage has to, so from the couple of things I love the idea of signage at the beach access. So how do tell me what I need to do to make that a reality, and I can work on that piece. The other piece of it, and I'm happy to, if I have the committee support, go and try to figure out how to connect with the local businesses, because I do think, I know at least from my conversations with the local businesses, as we have this conversation, they're like, oh, right, oh, well, I didn't know that, right? It wasn't,
Right.
you know, I'm, you know, the person who's buying for the shop, right, is going, well, I'm trying to do the right thing, buy sunscreen that says it's reef safe. It doesn't necessarily mean it's reef safe. Right? And once they're educated, they're like, oh, I can make that next, you know, my next purchase better. They're not going to throw out what they have. So this isn't going to be something where we see a switch right away. But I'd love to see the signage. I'd love to see the education to the local businesses. And I'm happy to take the lead on developing all that content, pushing that all out to them. And then I love this idea of a pop-up.
Yeah, I think
That's a large scale, though.
it's really not. I mean, it's really not large scale. I mean, I kind of got lost with the signage, because I guess with people coming up, you can get your point, or what, say for example, we just do something about informing people on turtle season and filling in their holes. You can also have more interaction, of course, COVID safe, but interaction by answering questions and having a little bit more of an interactive. That's what a pop-up is just a little bit more versus a sign. But I'm still confused about what you mean by the sign.
The beach access points has, don't do this, you put it on there, suggest not using these sunscreens.
I think we want to, from my perspective, we want to avoid demonizing any particular brand or trying to promote any particular brand, but it's more like the cards, think more like the informational cards that say, here's all the seafood and here's their level of mercury. The Georgia Aquarium does a beautiful one on that, right? Here are the chemicals, flip your sunscreen over, here are the chemicals you don't want to be using. If your sunscreen has it, right, look for sunscreens that don't. So it's that component. And I think Jennifer, I think the thought is it's not one or the other, it's both. Right? And I've run those big pop-up events on university campuses and stuff like that. And to coordinate and get people to staff it on a regular basis with the permitting and and getting people there, you get a much deeper interaction with those individuals, right? And a much more connection, but you don't necessarily have as broad of a reach.
I
So I
mean,
think you go for a broader reach with the signage, right? You go for a deeper reach with people don't always come down here with sunscreen. Let's try to work to change so the only sunscreen they can access, at least for the smaller businesses on the beach, are marine safe. Right, and then you continue with this education component because that feeds all of the mission, all of the different projects that we're trying to inform.
I mean, I guess I got thrown off when you said staff, because it would be all a volunteer, you know, be somebody wanting to come and talk about bird conservation. It would be somebody that's passionate, that wants to actually, you know, come and speak on that. So it wouldn't be necessarily a staffing, you know, it would just be if someone's interested in coming and speaking at a table. I just think it doesn't have to be as big or as difficult as.
Right, but you have to have one, you have to have somebody.
Administrative, it
Yeah,
has to be
and when I said staff, I didn't I apologize, wasn't talking.
staffing is the person, yeah, I mean,
Well, and who's coordinating, making sure that there's the permit, making sure that they're following
That would be
code.
me.
pop-up booth would be, you know.
Yeah,
that
the
stuff would be
pop-up
there.
booth would be there. Yeah,
That was my initiative.
so there's so I'll
Word.
work on the sunscreen side of things, you
Yeah.
work on the pop-up side of things, and
Yeah.
together we'll,
Yeah, get it together.
yeah, but so how do I go about, so just tell me what I need to do for this signage.
Well, one thing, does have
One done.
I think I've seen the banner floating around, so it is around Town Hall.
The old logo. It's got the old town logo, right?
somebody with site. Then those.
Right.
But now.
Yeah.
Program itself.
I want to say I talked to Allison about doing one on sunscreen right pre-COVID, and then I think the wheels fell off of everybody's bus. So I'll reach back out to her.
Yeah, she sent me the programming bill, is what she did. I could forward it, but I don't remember seeing the lecture series on there. I felt like all that was on there was the beach walk, Tuesday, Thursdays at 9, and then kayak tours. Is that on, well, she'd sent me she'd copied you on it too. I'll look at that closer then, because that just either went completely over my head. It was just a page, you know, what the next month's programming was going to be, so.
Gail. Can I reach out to them directly? I always never know where I step my bounds.
Can I talk? Who can I be friends with? Yeah. It's terrible. I hate it.
Okay. I will reach out, I know both Gail and Louise, I will reach out to both of them. I'll also reach out to Allison. I will put together a preliminary content that we could use both for signage as well as for QR code linking to more information and why it's important. I can have that for us by the next meeting. Yeah, we looked at them. We looked at them one time before yoga. You pointed them out. Yeah.
Yeah, we've only lost 2, I think, since the program started.
Do we know what the cost is on those signs?
Yeah, maybe 10, 15 of them or 10 of them. I had the list, Bill. I finally went and took inventory again, and so I told you, I promised you I'd update that, so. There's still a bunch up, the ones that were applicable to
Who
cleaning
pays?
up and things.
Who pays for them? Not to go back to the resources. I think.
Yeah. Kind of fun, that's right. Your mother called. She told you to pick up after yourself. I thought that one gets stolen. It's still there. There's 2 of them out there.
Okay.
One's needless to stay up like near the, the commercial end up there where it's real busy. I figured that somebody'd swipe that for a dorm room. That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that on, as an ongoing agenda item, and just update as we go.
And I'll just update you as we go.
Due
and I'll
dates or
start-
anything like that, just,
Yeah.
it's, that one's gonna take a little time to really,
Yeah, I definitely think, maybe not,
Well-
yeah, it'll take some time, especially to start to put more information out there. Well, and I think I mean, along the lines of what Jennifer was talking with the pop-ups, is it would be nice if we have this series of signs, if we're having these series of pop-ups that are more timely to whatever it is that we're trying to educate people on.
it's good ideas, but maybe not practical. People don't wanna bother you on the beach.
Maybe if you have it and you're on a table with a sign that says, ask me a question.
Right.
So you receive samples from certain companies or lots of companies or?
So there is a company that I work with that is more than willing to provide samples if anybody wants to try them.
Pamphlets, signs, do they have all that stuff? Would be great and
Yeah.
pop-up situation.
Yep. And there's also a cosmetic chemist that will come and talk about the science behind what's going on, and she actually translates the science quite eloquently, so that it makes sense to consumers. I'm stealing her messaging when I say the nutrition label. When she said that, it made perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't. How many, I look at nutrition labels all the time, but I never flipped my sunscreen over, nor did I flip my cosmetics over, but we won't go into that one.
Yeah.
Now, if we're going to promote a product, none of us can have a financial connection.
And I don't think we want to promote, her product is not the only reef safe process, and I have no financial connection.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
No, I have no financial connection.
Probably something to
Well, and I'm happy to go pull, and I'm sure that if I reached out to the other companies that are doing marine safe sunscreens and are following the EWG is the one who's identified that, an independent organization has identified the 13 bad chemicals that has it. I'm sure that if I reached out to the other few companies that actually don't have that in their sunscreen, they would give me samples as well. You know, I could almost guarantee it. Yeah, just tell me who I need to talk to and what I need to bounce off whom. But no, I have no financial stake in anything. I sweat for a living.
All right. Well, like I said, we'll keep that on, and that's gonna be ongoing, obviously, so, dark skies, we actually touched on this already in order to finish our little ordinance review, but I think take a look at, closer look, I guess, at the model ordinance, now that we have our current ordinance, why don't we leave that on the agenda, and we'll pick that up next month.
I guess, it'd be nice if y'all review it and, I mean, brought it up, you know, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, working.
Unless there's anybody else that has any discussions on the materials, that sound good to you guys? That's not, it's not a hot fire item for us right now, I can wait another.
We're gonna get new lighting, and FPL's doing a presentation on those compliant, the dark sky.
They should be. I mean, right now, they're not actually, they have wildlife-friendly lighting that's on their, approved product list, their APL. They've added a few more, so I think that's a good thing. Town was looking at a private build, per se, not working with public utility. At the time, I think that's still technically on the table with council. I don't think there's any decisions made on that at all. It'll be interesting to see what that, what'll come of that meeting on Tuesday. But either way, also the lighting, I mean, just to update you, since you guys had me on the selection committee for the lighting consultant, that was moved forward with a 5-0 vote from the council to, I think, negotiate with the lighting consultant. But no matter what you do, you're going to need an engineer to do the lighting plan, to do the light plan. FPL utilities don't have those departments, so they will put up what they're told, if, as long as it's in their product list, they'll put it up. Mm-hmm. But there still has to be somebody that tells them where to put them up, what the distances, all the specifications for the project. So I'm guessing that's that same consultant, since that's what the bid was for, that they would do that work. But I think it's ongoing. I'm not sure exactly where that's at since the council meeting. Right, because they actually provided that pricing, FPL, and they're not an engineering, I mean, they had no technical data to even provide that, and it was never a piece of paper either, it was just off the back of the envelope saying that you're gonna need 500 posts and 500 lights, and can you clarify what those two things are, Bill?
Well, like,
Hmm? Oh, yeah. It's long wavelength lighting. Well, there is now in the FDOT. They have added it to the 2021 Green Book that if it's in the wildlife area of concern, you're required to use wildlife amber lighting, basically. No. And it has to be taken from a product on their approved product list. And they're just now getting their product list up. But the information is that that they would fast track any additions. Right now, I think there's 2 or 3 products on their approved product list. Utilities, yeah. Right. Yeah, that's ongoing, so we'll see what happens there. Then dark skies will remain on there. We'll take a closer look at the current town lighting standards and then compare them to the dark skies, because at this point, all you had in preparation for this meeting was the dark skies, so we don't know how it differs from our current lighting program. So that's what I'd like to everybody take a look at for the next meeting. And any questions on that? With that? Next up, the dune management policy. We're still, that's still being worked on, I believe, Chad. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm still working on that document.
Yeah,
If
that's a
y'all
big
have any
one.
suggestions or anybody had any other thoughts on it, right, yeah, I mean, my understanding of your situation is that, I mean, you've been adding vegetation and adding vegetation over the years, where you had one path and now, as the vegetation's been added, different, footpaths just kind of occurred. I think that was FDEP's comment whenever received a complaint, was that it's clear if you look over the aerials that you've been adding vegetation, and the intent of the dune management policy is to create vegetation and create dunes, so it's not a violation of the intent of adding vegetation.
Colonizers, yeah.
Do you have any suggestions? Right. But the policy does allow for, things that are considered nuisance plants like coin vine and knicker bean and spurs. I believe those were kind of more considered, they're natives, but they can be considered nuisance by some and can be managed.
Be what, mitigated? Basically, you can to replace them. Can't be be net zero loss, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, that's language that, in my mind, needs to be there if it's not already, but yeah, if you're gonna take something out, you need to
What you want back
stabilize
in.
the
Yeah.
sand with some herbation.
Right.
I mean, the way getting back to the one path, I think the way I interpreted that is if you have no paths and you're all vegetated and you need to punch something through, you're allowed to punch a, 40-inch wide path through there. It's not necessarily that things are already existing or it's my interpretation. If you're completely vegetated, I want a path out to the beach, okay, you're allowed to develop, what are you allowed to develop in certain zones? You're allowed to develop a 40-inch path that's a permitted use through the dune vegetation. Yeah, like a 75% width of the lot and, yeah,
10
about
foot
15
wide dune, I think, right? 10 foot?
or 15, I can't recall which. From the frontal or from the back? The frontal is the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you've got, like you said, the dune's only 75 feet, or 75% of the lot width. And the advantage is that you could manage it to 75%. So technically, you've got a 25% of the width of your lot that is literally be maintained as a footpath. So like, correct, yeah. Right. Maybe it needs to be a change on the width of the, like, if you have multiple, I mean, if they're yours are probably just what, small footpaths, right? 18 inches, I mean.
With a lot of
Yep, so I mean, that illustrates the difficulty in trying to codify something that's attack the issue without, causing problems for others. But I think, the intent of the managed beach zones is whenever you have bare beach to create a dune. But I don't want it to become, because I've already had calls where somebody, their agenda is, I don't want my neighbor's vegetation coming onto my property. Well, that's not what the intention is. Allowed, for dune vegetation propagates. Want them to manage it into their own property. That's not the intent. The intent is where you have a bare beach, encourage you to create a dune for storm surge resiliency and to create habitat for wildlife, etc. So how do we encourage that? And that's the intent, not necessarily already have coverage and I want to reach 25% or.
Right, but technically they could if they sign up for to be a managed beach zone, correct?
Again, I don't think that's necessarily the intent.
It's only the other way around. If you already have, I mean, if you're willing
It depends on
to.
how you write it and what the, but I don't know. I have, not only do we want to have no net loss, we want to have gain in dune So, lane and dune, height and width. We start, 25% here, 25% there, are we really? I've been going on to develop this.
You to struggle, and we'll look forward to something to have to take a look at.
But again, with regards to yours, just coming back to that, I see that section in the EC zone is you want to develop your property, you're allowed to develop one pathway through. Necessarily, existing pathways that have been there, kind of just general walking traffic has established it. That necessarily applies. That's the thing. They are protected. It's kind of a conflicting. The codes are conflicting, or the policy and the code is conflicting. And in one end, they're protected, and they're actually called out as a protected plant. And then, the dune managed policy in the managed beach zone areas that has been created are allowed to be taken out. So that doesn't include dunes that have existed in the past. It's just in those managed beach zones that were created. Where there was nothing before policy. Yeah, so maybe I can bring some visuals to illustrate at the next meeting. But yeah, so there was some areas, there was bare beach, is my understanding, and other areas had maybe just back dune close to the buildings, and they wanted to, instead of having the dune right up on their building, they wanted to bring the dune out. So those were, the managed beach zones that were created as part of that renourishment project was what that managed beach zone policy was addressing.
Yep.
One of the complaints that I've had where, one property has, it's very vegetated, and wants to do, maybe a walkthrough, and then right next to it, it's just a bare beach, and fairly low lying because it's wide and a bit of salt marsh. And whenever there's a storm surge, they get storm surge into their properties because their neighbor doesn't have any kind of frontal dunes. So it's a resiliency issue. Or other comments? Right.
One neighbor.
A united front.
That's the objective, yeah.
Can I excuse myself and go to the restroom real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't know what the rules were.
I think we have to vote on it. Make a motion, second, and then vote.
Right. Let's ask Robert.
Mayor, who's the dad of the
Okay.
All right.
Right. Oh, now we got the, wait for them, but I got a question for Rose. I saw your submission in January. I was wondering how you got that in there. Did you contact the Observer, or did you work with Bill, or?
He sent me the guidelines to type up an article, and I contacted them and
Okay, okay.
emailed
was
it in
excellent.
to the guy, and
Great job.
Exactly, I saw it and I said,
Yeah.
why, she's actually, it's supposed to be for
Yeah.
the shoreline spotlight shore, Murphy thing, because I had the Murphy from Chad, and I was gonna put him,
it
put the,
does say the marine resource, I mean, it does say that
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it,
yeah.
but
We always had a special, that they put in.
yeah, in the back, and it's got our story, it's got the Murphy winner, and it's got the, but that, I mean, that's fine, I was glad to see it, to be honest with you. I just thought that I got it, everything was tangled up for me on my side, because Bill has been handing it off to me. It's been, hasn't been a real smooth, handoff since we didn't have the meeting either in January, so.
I'm just happy it got in January, because that was my deadline, and it was like, oh.
And you know, I mean, my experience with
Is there anything that I needed to do for the Murphy for
Arthrex?
Arthrex? Because I sent that kind of out, and I was hoping somebody would pick that up and get it to the paper, but
I have it, that's me. I'm officially gonna take care of that. So what we need is the assignments like we had last time, and then I'll get that in, prior to our meeting, because typically it says our next meeting will be, and invites public to come and join us, right, Bill? That's sort of the routine you had, so. Right, okay. Okay. Okay, so my objective will just be to pair them up and get them and submit them and let them roll whenever they roll, I suppose, that month, whether it's the first week or the second week or whatever. Okay, so, I don't think we had one for. I don't think so. I don't think we had anybody assigned. We were gonna go through, I think we did go through and reassign everything, I guess, but I don't know. Let me check here real quick. I'm gonna do this differently now.
Are we at the Good Citizen Award?
As Rebecca, yeah, we were just talking about just, attempting to improve the submissions. So I'll be whereas Bill was doing it, I'll do it now. So when you have your story, you can send it to me.
You'll
I'll
do the
pair it with the
editing?
Murphy. I'll submit it, like Bill used to do in the day.
We can send that directly to you.
To me, to Chad, I guess.
Are there any rules or?
Right, Chad? I mean, I'd love to take it, but I can't.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, send it to me and just sure I realize that it's for the paper, for the newspaper, and I'll blast it out to everybody so that it's kind of a general thing for the group to know what's coming, and for Steve to know that he needs to do his job.
As soon as I get it, I'll just pair the two up, the Murphy and the story, and once I have them, I'll really submit them, since we're not trying to target, the week before the meeting, so.
This is the monthly,
Monthly.
okay. Did we
Story, yeah.
establish who was who for 2021?
Nope, that's what I was about to do, and then I looked up and you guys came back in, so I wanted to make sure, we have that. So, I guess I didn't think I did that.
You had volunteered Renee was gonna do February, because she was,
Was that?
Fair. I totally buy
that
that.
was in my notes, but that's not on the,
Yeah, I made
yeah,
it.
that wasn't in the,
Wasn't in the minutes, but I know
so,
I also made,
and nobody else, so,
the list.
No, and I
Here it
agree
is.
with that because I do that to people all the time,
so,
so.
well.
Do we have did you guys decide a topic? Did we have a topic list that was moving forward?
It wasn't, it was really just whatever, usually it's current maybe. For you, maybe you wanna do safe, marine safe, or during turtle season, sometimes we do turtle ones, birding ones, it could be anything, actually.
Yeah, I'm happy to write on,
Research subject, yeah. educational subject, if you're interested, what they can do.
Now, so the one for February, then, when do you want to, I mean, again, of the timeline? You need to have it the Friday before our meeting?
That's me now, so I'm gonna be the,
When do you need to have it?
so it used to be, yeah, that we wanted it before the meeting, we were just discussing that, because we always we wish when the next MRF meeting was, and to invite people to come, and what Bill said is nobody's ever really come. So we decided that sort of timeline wasn't necessary, so I don't know, we can arbitrarily pick the, second, Monday of the month, something like that.
Okay.
Right. Then what's the editorial calendar though? That's a weekly, isn't it, Observer?
Yeah, on a Wednesday.
Comes on one. So, what is it, 5 a.m. on Monday?
I think it's
How about the second Friday of the month?
The month
Put that.
before, right? So if you
Well, the
have your
second Friday
article
of
in
the month
February.
if you have February would be, that'll be an exception, but if you have March, it would be the second Friday of March, and I'd get it in before their deadline on Monday. I mean, it probably wouldn't make we could make it the first Friday and make it before our meeting, but again, I don't think is that important?
I don't think that's important, and then it doesn't give you the opportunity, I guess you're partnering it with the old Murphy now.
doing an after meeting with. You find some,
Oh,
you decide on
right, so what would that be, if we had it the second Friday, would do it, right? Because we always meet the second Wednesday of the month, something like that. Yeah. If you'll get that reminder, hey, I need it in 2 days, right? Every month.
Do you want,
This is an exception, though. You can, what's the date?
today's the 10th? I could get it to you Friday or Monday.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll partner it with Arthrix, and then we will not have to vote on a Murphy this month. Have something, somebody has, because we like to bank them. We still have a few in the bank. They're getting a little crusty, though.
I think I saw an Arthur's photo in the paper. Are you sure it wasn't in already?
Well, that came by email, right? It shouldn't be in the paper, I
Is
don't
that
think,
what that
unless.
was? But I read something about them because I was impressed, because I read what they
Something in
did.
there.
They did something that I was surprised to read, but
Yeah,
I
they
say,
got a
oh,
bunch of-
great.
A photo of a bunch
Because-
of people, and I was like, oh.
When was that? What was that, Rose?
Is it possible that our
Last
marketing
week's or the
or-
week before, but
Dexter, did she submit it, possibly?
The articles to,
CIO? Arthrex information to, or do you think the newspaper picked it up? They're thinking that we saw it in the newspaper once already.
Yeah, prosthetic limb. They made a prosthetic limb for someone, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah,
Well,
no, in
that's
this
what they-
case, Arthrex isn't that business, artificial joints, I think, but no, the
Oh, that's
the
not the
Murphy
same company?
was for picking up,
Yeah, but they're the ones who did that. And so they had their photo. It said something about cleaning up the beach. And then it also gave some explanation of what they did, because I had never heard it before. And drew it to a couple people's attention that these were the ones who had been working on our beach. And they also do this good work for people who are handicapped.
I missed the article, I never saw it, so, yeah, okay.
Oh, gosh, it was
back
a
in
great
my mind,
article.
It's
Let's-
tickling here a little bit. I saw either just a photo, but we've got, Chad's got a nice write-up, so I think we just give him
Yeah,
double
good.
dip.
Because I know I looked carefully at the photo in hopes that I knew someone in there because I wanted to talk to them about the company.
I can't recall
know
whether
anyone.
it was the email that's reminding me of that, because I'd read the story and everything. He told us, we voted on it.
It was in the paper, Rose.
I do too. I have the last two observers, so
Yeah.
if it's in one of those, I'll scan it and I'll send.
Okay. Right.
Anyway, and then we have John the fisherman still in the bank, right?
On the
Remember,
fisherman.
he's the,
Yes.
okay.
Are we still, scheduling for the year though, or?
Yes, we are. We're in the
Okay.
middle of that. Yes, we've got,
we
Mean
move on
Girls,
to
the
Murphy Award?
Sandspur event. We even still have the Sandspur event. That's the ones getting crusty. There's Indiana girls too. I think they're out now. Lee Thompson, we got her, the biker. Fisherman John is his name?
That's his name, John.
We have no, the Vulture was used already, right?
Yes.
And John. Okay, so we've got one, and is the Sandspur event, that's crusty?
I think it's important.
When we did the cleanup with the Sandspurs? Never did go to and get a photo of that or anything from,
That's,
You can, but that,
okay.
was it? Okay, yeah, let's start
Yeah.
fresh. Got John, the fisherman in the bank. Have that information. So, so March, who would like to be March? Anybody?
I wouldn't mind doing March. I guess what I would like to do is, I guess I can change course if something the committee wants to support, but the pop-up, the educational environmental pop-up, so, if
If you've got that planned out, could write about it. I don't see that being a problem. About April.
Might be a nice call to get people who are interested in potentially talking. I mean, if you put a call to action at the end and invite people who are interested in sharing their knowledge.
Well, yeah, exactly, that, and also, volunteers, also put it out to the community, see what they think about it,
How about April?
I'll do April, but I have no idea what to do it on, Steve.
That's fine, I don't either yet.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just waiting for somebody not to
It's
answer and I'll
April.
put my name in there. Yeah.
Yellow lights are made equal.
Aha, okay. I can work on that.
Can you repeat that?
All yellow lights.
Sure.
The issue with bug lights.
Okay, how about May? Be for May? Take May. So you have your choice of June or July?
July, hopefully I'll be in Africa. I'll take June.
Okay. Okay, there.
Follow you, so
Well, we still have Mrs. DeBeer. We'll assign her, shall we? It's July? We'll remind her. For 2 days in June. July. August, you want to start over again? We'll go through August then. Right. Then we will, we'll get together again in the fall and refill the list. All right? Any issues with that?
But I'm
So
gonna
we
ask
said that's
Chad
gonna
to
be,
send me
those are due
information.
the second, we said the second Friday of the month. I'll go through there and actually come up with due dates and something that Chad to send out to you guys. All right, as long as I have this every month though, that's all that counts. Remember that if it's your month, it's 2 days from the meeting, so. I mean, how much more time do you need, I guess, depending on how much research you want to do. All right, so for the sake of time, let's keep moving this thing along here. I was going to fall asleep on us. Get some of the fam. That's my agenda.
I think we're done. We have just had members' items.
Okay, members' items. So,
Rose has a big one.
oh, she does. We're waiting for her. She's got a big one. Well, let's start with Rose then.
And, since we didn't meet last month, just to have this group approve the 10 plans that were gonna be like the top invasive candidates on the checklist. And then, I mean, they can still add in and write in others. That would be good to have that approved.
I think everybody was sent the list and was asked for comments. I did hear back from Miss Mary Rose, who gave some comments. I did not hear back from anybody else, so I just, omission.
I think I did respond, just said, looks great.
Okay.
So, does anybody have any objections to the?
No, I don't have any objections, but I would just like, Rose, I'm the one, I said that I thought we should include Latin names in there.
Yes, and I addressed
And I'm-
that to Chad, and then that didn't go out.
Right, because of space. I'm just concerned,
So they're going to be, but on
Oh, there
a
are?
separate, there's a separate page that's a key
okay,
for how they can fill in the form. And I did it on the original form that I got, into regular paper. By putting the Latin names, the scientific names,
right,
font gets so small you can't read it.
I understand.
So on the key, I have much more room because on the key, it's actually going to be turned sideways. It's just going to have one example, but I can do the Latin names. And actually, I've created a PowerPoint with pictures of all of these that actually Stephen Brown right now is reviewing, and I'm seeing him tomorrow because it might be revised, some of the pictures. He has his own pictures he'd like to. He worked on the list of invasive exotic species in
Wonderful.
Florida. And the size was another concern, and that was mentioned previously too.
Yeah,
And the key is going to be that it's something 6 feet or higher. Circle that. So it's going to be kind of like a tally mark. So if they saw 3 Brazilian peppers and one of them was over 6 feet and the other one was trimmed like little bushes or something, they would tally one and circle it and have 2 below it.
right.
So we're going to keep track that way. It's really, if you're walking on the street, it's going to be hard to measure.
Sure.
People can pretty much tell by their own height if they're 6 feet or more. And actually, that's what Sanibel uses on their vegetation for trimming a lot of times, 6 feet. So
These plants are actually in the ground or not potted or in a
I'm going to say
contained.
either, because I am guilty. I have the least Florida-friendly yard.
So is there
It's so
something
embarrassing. I'm starting.
That might be up there.
actually specified? I didn't see anything on the list that specified if the volunteer was gonna specify if it's in a pot or if it's in a container, contained
No.
landscape
Like I have
area.
Australian ferns in pots in my yard.
And
I
also
think
on
they
the
should
list, does
go.
it say, are they gonna specify where it is on the property? Like say, south of, no, it's just gonna say that
They
they
can
have,
squeeze that in. There is a little note section off to the side where if they see some other invasive plant that they can actually identify, they can put it in there, or other notes such as you had mentioned a bird nest in a tree. You know, if they see something that's invasive, but they also see a bird nest, they can write that in the note section. Yeah, I don't. Thanks for stuff.
Right, plus
It's
you won't
kinda
be
more
able
like a
to,
checklist.
if it's a solid fence and you see the top coming up, I don't think you can get in there to see if it's coming
Yeah,
out of
we're
the
not
ground or a
sneaking
pot
in.
or-
And then on the road, this group still needs to kind of figure out, all this information is going to be provided to the town of Fort Myers Beach. So then there's got to be that data entry piece. Need to negotiate whether that's going to be the town entering all that data. Master gardener volunteers want to enter data and hand it over.
Oh, I
Enter
see what
data
you're saying.
into,
Like an
into
Excel
the
spreadsheet.
address of the property with the invasive plant. And that's all kind of down the road because this is, we're using the road maps that are already online for the town. So there's going to be 5 separate days of canvassing the town. It's actually going to go for several months. It probably won't be done until May. But then there's plenty of time to start looking at that, but that does need to be considered, and I don't know if that's this group that should be considering what the data is going to look like and who should be responsible.
I think that
We can make
what we
proposals.
discussed was we need to evaluate the data to see what direction to go in. Is there a problem? Is there a huge problem? Is there no problem? Is there, how,
Or just make it available to,
Well, not only education.
How are we gonna see this data? That's what, when that.
it's gonna come in.
In May, when they're
yeah.
done, we're gonna have a stack of papers?
Yeah,
One paper for each street, is that it?
Well, not necessarily per street, but because they only are recording the addresses that have invasive plants that they can see, so there might be an entire street that has no invasive plants. So it's really just gonna be whatever ones are listed. It's coming out on 10 properties per page. There's a lot of property on Fort Myers Beach, so I have, at this moment, no idea how.
Well, the question is it needs to be digitized, obviously. Right?
Yeah,
So
it
that's
needs
the
to be
big question.
digitized, and then you can analyze it.
Right, even
Right.
for us to look at, we need to have somebody compile this once we get the papers.
That's the question, is who's that somebody, or could the data be put in on a cell phone spreadsheet, which most everybody has, so it's digitalized from the very beginning, and we don't have to translate it later?
And the Master Gardener volunteers might be doing that. There is, people looking for hours because of COVID where they can't have classes in person. They're looking for paperwork kind of projects.
Trying to make it a digitalized project.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
she's
it's
saying,
obviously
is
good
digitize the.
Saying that
part-
instead of, what
an
you're
Excel
saying is
spreadsheet.
don't bring a clipboard, bring an iPad and just type it into your iPad or your phone
Yeah.
as you go, so that you don't have data entry issues.
Oh, but most of, no,
Oh, that's,
most of the Master Gardeners are,
yeah.
65 plus, no offense to anyone else, but that's not going to happen.
So
They're gonna have a clipboard. I mean, they've been instructed to have a clipboard with this form.
let's start with that piece of it. And then I think finding someone to work on the data entry piece. Let's see if we can't explore that.
Do
That
that.
feels like either depending upon how much data you have, that's something that we could potentially do, or that's also a student project, an easy project for a student.
Absolutely, yeah. There's gotta be some resource we can find.
Yeah.
Not, like you said, the Master Gardeners
And I will
themselves,
ask
if
them
they were
for-
earning credits for it, then maybe they'd be willing to enter their data.
Or enter everyone's data. Ideally, if you're gonna do the data entry afterwards, you'd have it double entered.
Entered?
That mean,
So you have two people entering the exact same data, so you can bounce it off of each other, so that it doesn't, for some reason, 2 hash marks turn into an 11 on one piece of paper, right? So somebody looks at it, human error, right? So it's Maya House, right? And someone puts these 2 hash marks and enters 11, right, for a certain type of plant versus 2.
in other words, we need 2 people to compile.
And then
compare.
and then you bounce it off of each other, ideally.
Okay.
Yeah, ideally, although this
I volunteer Chad.
isn't necessary.
Yeah, we know he has nothing else to do.
Let me check with the Master Gardeners tomorrow. I'm also meeting with
Talk
the
to them
coordinator
first, yeah,
tomorrow.
we
and
can
see if
cross that
there's
bridge, yeah.
that, and then check around. And like I said, it's not gonna be done till May, and I'll have some idea, hopefully by the next meeting at least, of how much data is being collected in one section of Fort Myers Beach.
Right.
Because it might be nice too if we could do it from a data management perspective. You do a section, enter that data.
Oh, right, rather than waiting to the end and
Right,
having
yeah,
hundreds
yeah.
of sheets of paper. Yes, I agree. Right, that's why it's a checklist. That's why, yes, it's a checklist of, other than the notes section, that could be challenging.
Of course, yeah. I'm saying we'll have to be,
I mean, this could be monumental.
Personally, I think that, again, if you don't have it specified on where it is on the property, at the end, ultimately, if we're gonna have the town send out a letter saying you have this, schefflera, plant on your property, then what if the property owner doesn't even know what a schefflera is? So if you can actually be more specific on where the plant is on the property, it might be more helpful for the homeowner or the renter to know they're looking for and where to look for it.
Yeah, but I think at that point, that goes back to Bill's comment, Councilmember Beach's comment about the fact that, how are you gonna educate them? Telling them where it's at on their property isn't gonna, I am not a plant person, right? But telling me where on my property is not gonna help me find that plant. We're gonna have to put some sort of a picture or I love the idea of a QR code for this, right? So they get this information, and if you don't know what these plants are, here's a website that talks about the plants, why they're bad, right? Why they're invasive, what they're negative, and why you should be taking them out, and you can do that. And
I have the
an
PowerPoint
argument.
with the pictures.
right, yeah. But I'd have to Google what that thing was to be able to find it.
right?
Ultimately, is that what is gonna happen is that once you've compiled the list, then it would go in the town, and then the town would then send a letter to the property owner?
Potentially, I
What's
think-
the ultimate goal of
I was
this?
hoping that property owners, I don't know, that's a lot.
Just wanting to know what the end goal is.
I don't think we have one.
We don't have one yet. I mean, it's to take a look at the data. I mean, there's one that Bill articulated was that it's invasive. We want him to get rid of it. I mean, that's what he desires. But as a group here, we have to see what like I said, I'd like to see what the data even is. How bad is the problem? What's the worst?
Do you have something do you have an ordinance on selling invasive plants on the island?
I don't think so. Did we,
I
We
know
have
that
any other
Sanibel
selling
does
plants on the
have an
island?
ordinance on selling, because I noticed some of the market that were probably invasive.
But you can.
Costco.
I feel like, I mean, we will do something, but I think that already, to Renee's point, that it's a good idea to at least talk about maybe what the options are, just to make sure we get the data in. Because last thing is you got a great idea and you realize, well, it would have been a lot easier if we had this or that, or.
And some property owners may want to then call and find out if their property was named as having invasive plants. That would be the easiest, but then someone here would have to have access to that data once it's compiled. Say, oh yes, your property is, Carlos Circle, yes.
I mean, everybody's not watching us right now?
Man, it's,
I know of two.
don't miss TV here. Okay, very good. Thank you for all your hard work on this.
Thank you.
It's been
Yes.
absolutely
Yes, thank you.
fantastic.
It's awesome.
It is, it really is. Oh, yeah, I mean, to just mobilize that army is fantastic. Okay, Mary Rose?
Nothing new this month, thank you.
Hey, Renee?
Nothing new this month?
I have, I had something here. I can't find my agenda though, so, just the, programming piece from Allison. I'll take a closer look at that about the lecture series, Bill, and we can share that. Otherwise, I guess that's it. At least me. Right. Actually, I did have another member item, and that was to follow up with Chad. We had requested resources, so you could look at the invasives in the EC and the CWA. Was that
I guess maybe
circled back from?
proper way to bring that up would maybe be at an MNP meeting for town council, so I'll do.
Okay, because we did discuss it with them, that was voted on, and that was something we'd like to see happen, so. I don't know, so thanks. That went.
Anything to add?
Nothing? Jennifer?
Just the pop-up, the conservation, educational, environmental pop-up. That if the committee would support me in organizing, coming up with a list of volunteers. I don't know exactly how to ask for something to be put on an agenda, because I'm sort of city hall. I don't know if it even needs to be on an agenda, or if it's just something that you all agree with and or support. I also think if to do it, I don't think it's going to be as much work. I used to own a restaurant, and I've put on fundraisers for food banks. I've done lots of things like that. I guess right now my question would be to Chad, or what are the odds of getting permits for Lynn Hall Park and to do something like this with a pop-up? Yeah, you said it's being
So you
very
need to do a special
stringent.
event permit, yeah?
They're being very stringent. Is it
I didn't know.
that they're being very stringent and giving permits?
Yeah, there are
because of
some,
COVID?
there are some rules. I'm not familiar with all the details, but, if you, well,
I think it's due to the COVID rules, yeah,
Yeah,
normally it'd be a
That's my
no-brainer, I think.
problem, Jennifer, is it's
Oh.
COVID, with the COVID, I hesitate to ask groups of people to gather. And I would hesitate,
They're
I would
already
love to
gathering in the
participate,
parks.
and you know me, you wind me up, I love to talk. But I hesitate to go into any gatherings of people I don't know.
There's, you have to have a COVID mitigation plan attached to any special permit with most of the towns, including ours right now, and that's how you're gonna handle hand sanitization, how are you gonna handle social distancing, how are you gonna handle masks? Just think everything that everything a business would have to think through, and how you're gonna handle that at that special event, in order to keep people who might be there safe. I think, I'm hoping that COVID eventually
Yeah,
goes
how
away.
much longer,
Yeah, so
No.
maybe, but I don't think that the pop-up is gonna happen next month. Do
that's
you know what I
true.
mean? I think it's, you
right,
know,
it's gonna,
so if the idea is to start to make plans for it, maybe by the time it gets up and running,
yeah.
we might have a different environment, but
So do you all feel as though this is something to curb until the summer, or?
No, we think you should get it all set up,
Okay,
so that when the time is ripe, you know exactly what you're going to do.
okay, so is this something that we put on the agenda next month that I can bring to the table to talk
Yeah.
about, or how?
Maybe during your members report, similar to Ms. Rose here, and
Oh, okay.
I think maybe, because it's, unless you'd like to,
I would like to see, when
yeah, we're
Well,
gonna,
look
right when
into
we're done here,
permits,
as soon as
can
you're
I-
done, we're gonna set the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay,
So we
so
do that
that's-
every meeting, you can say, I'd like to add something to the agenda. If you feel like you'll have something by next meeting, we can do it, or you can wait until next
Oh,
month
yeah,
to
I'll
say,
have-
hey, I've got some stuff for the
yes,
next meeting.
I already do, I just wasn't sure how to go about it, if I asked the
Yeah, we'll
committee
put it on
to.
there.
And then, do I look into the permits myself, or is that something as the? Okay.
Yeah, maybe a scope.
What you wanna do.
Maybe a project overview of kind of how you see it. I mean, just to write it out, what elements are there, like a scope of what the
I bring the
intentions
actual
are.
names of the
what's
volunteers that would
flying
speak.
all over your head right now? Yeah, a
Do I
half a
bring,
sheet of paper.
do I bring the names of the volunteers that I already know that will speak, the educational or environment?
Sure, you can have that on, a little table to say, here's the first 3 or 4
Yeah,
that you
definitely
have
a
in mind, something
calendar of
like that.
events, like, you know, who's doing what month, or what's your plan for each month? I can tell you that May is sunscreen awareness month.
Oh, so that would be a good start.
Shameless plug.
I mean, as in regards to having like 10 people or less, I guess, that would be difficult to control during COVID because, I mean, if you walk down Times Square right now, there's definitely more than 10 people in Times Square. That would be a difficult thing to control, but I make it, with the hand sanitizer and, masks and
Right, yeah, it just adds a whole level of problems if you're pulling out that type of stuff. Okay. So, set the agenda for next meeting. Public comment. Correct, yeah. Absolutely.
The other is
Do they have some that are non-reflective? The MRF body, you're saying?
really they kind of came up.
Right.
What our recommendation.
That sounds reasonable, I think. That's the question is, I mean, from personal perspective, I think that if you feel like you might be out of compliance and potentially can get clipped, then you need to do what you can do to mitigate that issue. So tinting your windows is gonna help you avoid fines, and you need to do that, but that's on your own, and also doesn't give you any guarantees, because if your door open, or your slider open, that light's coming straight down to the beach, and you leave it at the wrong time, and you got 100 little turtles marching toward your house. Oh, no, there can't be a guarantee. I agree with you 100%. Right, and I think you're right. I mean, I've actually personally said I need to research this more, because it doesn't sound like the FWC is in a position that they want to recommend people either, but they need to. There's so much technology out there that. But also, technically, I don't know, you choose the wrong one. Is there, liability to say this thing? Some of them will cause a thermal effect on your window too. That'll actually crack your glass, is my understanding. I don't know if that was early versions, way back when, but there's science behind it. So I think I'd like to understand it real well before I talked about it. I don't know what the technology is, you know, is it? Right, right.
And I
Yeah, but the energy savings will be phenomenal. I mean, think about it. Rental units, you'd think they'd really appreciate that. Pardon me? I think, I think you need to get the statistics, because obviously I think that those exist. I'm sure there's been testing done on that to see what the savings are, so. You just can't throw numbers around until you verify them, so. Yeah, that would be a good one, Bill. We'll look at that for sure. All right. So, listening. Next agenda. Next month's agenda is. Who's in my agenda?
Fertilizer certification and training.
That stays on, yeah, because we were gonna go back to that.
Sea turtle ordinance review. On, or we've
No, I think we
finished.
want one ready for sea turtle.
Excavation.
That's
Research to other communities and
right. It stays on.
ocean-friendly sunscreens.
We said that would stay on, right?
Yeah, I'll have an update on
Update, yeah.
content.
I mean, these don't have to be
Dark skies model ordinance.
definitely on.
Management.
Yep.
Murphy Award. Else?
Bill,
It was a members item, Bill, instead of putting it on the agenda for now.
Do we want to put Jennifer,
Okay.
we want to put Jennifer's pop-up on there for next month?
How would you like it on there?
I would.
Okay, let's put that on there. That would be great, would be to have that sort of that scope document that we can
Yeah, I'll bring pictures.
all follow
and
through it and stuff,
yeah.
yeah, while we go over it.
Bring some visuals.
Bring some fun stuff, okay. Excellent, well, we killed this meeting, I'll tell you that. A lot going on,
We do.
all right.
Move to adjourn.
I second.
Any objections? So moved.
Thank you.
Adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Good
That was
job.
you probably say 15.
I know it. So true. Any objections?
So ride home in the dark pretty
So
soon.
moved, I'm telling you. Jeez, think of those dogs. I didn't.
Where in Africa are you planning on going?
Kenya and then Tanzania.
Nice. Have you been before?
Well, I've been to North Africa. I haven't been to Central Africa. I mean, been to. I don't consider that Africa. It is.
Yeah, we went to took a trip in Namibia a few years back with the family.
Well, we have a,
That's a gorgeous country.
I love Africa. I've been to Egypt, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Congo, South Africa. Go back in October.
sometimes
Lovely.
Fingers crossed
we kind
for
of
you.
need to pull those out like every